Hi there, Glocal citizens. Welcome back to the podcast that inspires a borderless mindset around manifesting a new world. I'm your host, Florence Aduke, coming to you from Peja. This is our series of speaking with writers and authors and poets and screenwriters and all those great things that become the written word at the Ake Festival. It is a literary festival here in Accra. It happens every year. This is the 8th year. And I'm just so excited to finally be a part of it. I've been coming and watching, and now I get a chance to speak to some of the authors on site. So I'm here with one of the esteemed authors. Let's get right to her bio. She utilizes her legal and advisory skills to assist in business and creative development. Commencing her career in legal practice with the law firm of Udo Udoma and Bello Osagi. She later worked for many years in various leadership roles within EcoBank Nigeria Limited and Leadway Pensure PFA. She is regularly called to speak and moderate on topics related to her interest in history and culture. And these have included sessions at Cornell University in the US, the Institute of Africa and Diaspora Studies at the University of Lagos, the Lagos State Record and Archive Bureau, the annual conference of the Lagos Studies Association, where she was awarded, got an award recently, and the Ake Festival, as well as the Lagos Book and Art Festival, LABAF, amongst others. Her published collection of poems have featured as festival books for both the LABAF and the Ake Festival. And her children's books have also featured at previous editions of LABAF and Akada Children's Book Festival and here at Peja. So she is currently the chair of the Steering Committee of Art for Life, an initiative of the Lagos State Ministry of Health established to introduce art and the practice of art into the entire healthcare process. I love that. She's a member of the advisory board of Open House Lagos, as well as the advisory board of the Lagos Biennial. She volunteers on the board of Child Life Line, an NGO established for the welfare of street children. Aduke Gomez, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Florence. It's the same.
Hey, yeah. My tree is not even that great. So, but yes, thank you for that greeting. Akwaba.
Thank you very much.
Yes, Medasi. Okay, let's jump right in. Where are you from? Where are you local? And what is your craft?
Where am I from? I'm from Nigeria. I live in Lagos. Precisely, I've always lived and worked in Lagos, apart from some time abroad studying. My mother's Irish, so I have a double, a double view on things. Yes.
Okay. And what is your craft?
Okay, so I write. Mostly I'd say I write poetry and I write children's books. People sometimes ask me why such different genres. Poetry, I guess because I'm lazy.
Oh no. Okay. Well, let's hear it. Yes.
Okay. Poetry is an art that you can say in a page what would take you 100 pages to say. And so you can compress and condense your ideas into something that just communicates in 2 or 3 lines. But if you were going to write it out and spell it out, so, lazy. Children's books, because I feel that since I'm in Accra now, I'm going to assume and say in Africa, but generally in Nigeria, I think that we don't see enough, our children don't see themselves enough in books they read. Mm-hmm. And it's improving now in Nigeria, but a lot of the Nigerian books that children read don't reflect the day-to-day living of, say, a city child. Mm-hmm. They may be set in
an estate
or in the interior, and sometimes reading about life in the village and going to the stream is as far away removed from a child living in a mega city like Lagos as reading snowdrops and daffodils. Mm. Because they don't have either experience of of both, perhaps. So, and I do think that as the world becomes more global, it's actually also important to ensure that the children are rooted properly in the local where they come from, so that they can transverse both worlds without a sense of loss of their own identity.
I love that. It's a lot of why I too am engaged with children's education, because they're the reason.
They're the future, and they're the ones who are going to look after us in what, 10, 20 years time.
Exactly.
So we better be nice to them now.
Exactly. Okay, so you found your way to art,
I found my way to art, yes.
but it was a bit of a journey to get there.
Convoluted, yes.
Yes. So how did you start? What interested you in law in the first place?
Okay, so at my age, when you're going to school, I don't know what it was like in Accra. You're supposed to go to school and do certain things. A profession, medicine, doctor, engineer, maybe, accountant, maybe. All of these require a good understanding of maths. I don't have that. But I read voraciously. Since you like to read, come on, go and do law. So that's how I ended up in law.
Okay.
Yes, since you like to read.
Yeah.
So I ended up in law. I did law for many, many years. Then I ended up in the bank. In the bank I started off initially in law and then in the legal department, and then moved around, because in banks you tend to move around.
Right.
And so I moved around various departments. And then when I had left the bank, I now joined government, and I was senior special assistant to the governor at the time, Governor Fashoda, and I was in the tourism ministry. I was seconded to the Ministry of Tourism, working with the commissioner at that time. And then after that, I told a story at the poetry session I did yesterday. I don't know if you were there. And somebody also asked, why did I start writing? So my first book was published in 2017. Okay, and so I'd always written, but for myself. And because, as I said, it's like you have experiences and they're easier to remember and to condense in a poem. So I had my work, and I've always listened to poetry in a way, as a way of making sense of things that have happened. Okay, not just to you, but even to other people, because I'm quite honest in that I will steal other people's stories and put them in a poem. So, but I didn't show them to anybody or talk to them. And then it must have been 2016, because my book was published 2017, so I'm assuming it was 2016. And I and two friends had gone to see a show. And after the show, the three of us went for dinner. And so one of them is in the creative field. I and friend two were not, as you've seen, legal practice, banking, government, yeah. So we were talking, I and friend two were talking about what was that? I mean, what sort of terrible thing was that? Yes, and all that. And friend one, who had nothing to do with the production, by the way, but was incensed and said to myself and friend two that, why are you talking about this? Have you people done anything creative before? Do you know how hard it is to do something creative? And I thought to myself, I'm not sure that the criterion to be able to critique is that you have done something yourself. But however, if that's what you think it is, here's my book.
Bam.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So since 2017, I've had two of my own poetry collections published. I've had 4 children's books, and I've edited 2 poetry anthologies.
Okay.
So I think I can talk about creative things now.
You're
Right?
in it. Yeah, solidly.
Thank you.
Indeed. So that's interesting. That process, do you think that, getting to the publishing, coming from the corporate world, do you find that your corporate experience helped you to navigate that business side of being a creative better than maybe someone who may not have?
Okay, so my first book, I self-published because, again, I don't like the thing about creativity is that you have to be able to face rejection.
Yes.
Okay, not very good at rejection.
Okay.
So I self-published it because I wasn't going to take my book as I'm begging people, please, do you want to publish my book?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. And I have a kind of, I guess, iconoclastic approach. I think traditional publishers are great and wonderful to be published by them. And my second book, well, my first children's book and my second poetry collection were published by the same the publisher, and that was because he'd seen my first. But I think that we forget that the industry of publishing grew up from people who were self-publishing their books in the 17th century.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know, I'm not really sure why people look down on it so much, except that perhaps it's a way to gatekeep. But really, if you've read enough books, you know what a book's supposed to look like. You should be able to, I don't think the book should be looked down on. I mean, I think that being traditionally published gives you a sense of validation.
Yeah.
I'm published by the same person that publishes this. Yes. Okay. But that's not to say that if you can't find anybody to publish your book and you're sure about your book, you've shown it to other people, they've edited it, there's no typos, it reads well. Publish your book yourself. And just know that at least I have my book out, because I think if you have something to say, you shouldn't allow your voice not to be heard, because either in my case, you're too self-conscious to approach publishers and say, oh, please, I have a book, or you don't know any publishers, or you don't know, and you're like, oh, how am I going to do it? Write your book, take it to a graphic designer, have it laid out, take it to a printer, and publish your book. I have a book.
I love that. That's very good advice. Yeah, it's a get it done. It's very African, I want to say, in terms of, I mean, not to say that it's not Western, but the do-it-yourself mode of accomplishing is something that we've had to do.
We do our light and our water by ourselves.
Yeah.
So shouldn't you publish your book by yourself?
Exactly.
I mean, I used to have a friend. She told me several times that she'd written a book and it sounded great. 100,000 words. I mean, that's a book.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And she lives in Nigeria and she's looking for an agent. And I said to her, this agent is not an easy task. And we are in Africa. 2, you are not young.
Right.
Publishers like authors that have many books in them. Unless your book is so exemplary, the chances of being published traditionally over a certain age reduce in proportion to the age that you are. So you can have 2 great books, 30-year-old and over 50. If you are a publisher with a certain amount of budget, who would you choose? It's nothing personal.
Yeah.
And I remember I said, you've written 100,000 words. You have spent time. Do you know what it's like to sit and write 100,000 words? Yes. The story sounded intriguing. It sounded great. I said, publish your book yourself. When you've published it, send it out.
Exactly. Yeah.
If it's good enough, you will not be the first, you won't be the last. Editors will see it Publishers will see it, and then they can republish your book. Once a book is published, it can be republished.
Yes, exactly.
It can be touched up, it can be edited, it can be boom, 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 pizzazz, this. But she's still in her cupboard with her book.
Oh, but I mean, it's a perfectly good point. It makes a lot of sense.
But again, if you need that validation that I am being published by a traditional publisher, by all means. And yes, I'm very happy with the people who publish me. I'm very happy. But
it took you doing it first, though.
It took me doing it first.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Makes a lot of sense. So let's take a step back into the place where you are. So I like to ask why the where. So you mentioned that your mother is Irish and that you grew up, born and raised, and lived most of your life in Nigeria and Lagos. So let's get down to the where and like in Lagos. And so how did you come to be living, working, and playing where you currently are located?
Okay, so I've always lived in Lagos, but more importantly, I'm from Lagos. Okay, so Lagos is now a city of over 20 million people, but not everybody comes from Lagos.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
So they are indigents of Lagos. Okay, and those indigents have a history of the city. My surname, for instance, which is from my dad's side, my ancestor came back as a free person from enslavement in Bahia.
Wow.
So he came back in the 1840s, back to Lagos and settled in Lagos. And some of the other work I do is I do talks on this heritage, because I think it's a heritage that, I don't know, when you grow up with a heritage, you think everybody knows it.
Right.
Because
particularly
in
Africa, right?
Yes,
like,
because you know it.
Yeah.
And the people who you know it. But then I've realized as I've got into it and I've got older, obviously, not as many people know about it as you would think. Okay? I think the best way I can... Okay, so at one point in Lagos, when they came back, they were actually given an area to develop, and so there was Afro-Brazilian quarters. So to show you that there were enough of them that came back to be given an area to develop and live. Okay, and you can recognize them by names like Gomez, Cardoso, Da Silva, Pinero, Pedro, all those.
We have a bit of that here in Accra as well.
Yes, called Tabon here. Yes, exactly. But you see, it's history that has to be remembered, because often when we talk about the transatlantic slave trade and the effect on Africa, we always talk about the people that left. But we don't talk about the people that came back. And if we don't talk about the people that came back, we are missing the opportunity to say these are stories of hope, of resilience, and how your life can be transformed by your own efforts.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Because many of them came back. Obviously, you have to have put in some efforts, luck, begging, praying, doing your little jobs to be able to even buy your freedom anyway. Then you have to now get through all the red tape to buy your exit visa, work with your other free friends to work together to charter a boat, because it's not like this. You can just get on a flight, right?
Right.
So that's tenacity. And to now come from being enslaved, to now come to a new place where you can start again, reinvent yourself and reinvent your life, and actually, with many of them, rise to the top to be the elite of the society to which they have returned, is a story that needs to be, to me, it's a story of real human effort. And And it's not sufficient to just look at the stories of the people who have been taken, because that's tragic and it's heartrending. And and because of how we are as humans, you can become fatigued by that trauma.
Right.
So you have to have a story to be told of people who have come back and were able to, and they mean in the proportions of the volume of people who were taken. Obviously, it's not a huge amount of people, but people did come back, and they were successful. And in Lagos, they developed the form of architecture known as the Afro-Brazilian architecture. And I strongly believe that we have to remember that.
Yes, yes. So have you infused any of those stories in your children's stories?
I actually have in one of the books I have written. This is not a picture book. It's more of like maybe age 10. Okay. So it's a book I was commissioned to write, and I worked with a media company called Biola Alabi Media. And so they had produced a film about two young girls called Lara and Dara. And due to the response to the film, they now wanted to do a prequel of when the girls were young. Because in the film, the girls are like 24 and 25. So, but they wanted to do a prequel. Because, you know, the thing with art is sometimes what you are writing is not what the reader is going to take in.
Right, yeah.
So this particular film was very popular with younger audiences. Okay? So Biola Alabi Media thought, okay, let's make a book about when the girls are young. And so the characters are already fixed.
Yeah.
Okay?
Right.
Okay. So when I came on board, the film had already been made, so the characters are fixed. So one of the characters was called Sal Gomez, okay? A man, short for Salvador, a boy rather. And so one of the girls and himself go on an expedition, okay? But she asks him, what sort of name is Sal Gomez? You don't sound particularly Nigerian. And he begins to tell her about the Emancipados and how his grandfather had told him the story of how the enslaved people came back. So, yes.
Nice, nice. So we're going to have links in the show notes, everyone. So, but that's I love it. That's the point of that work.
Because I feel that as well, history is not supposed to be in a glass box. Okay? But I think that's the difference between the Western world. The Western world brings out their history for people to see, okay, to interact with, to interrogate, okay? If you grow up in England, every so often, they'll bring out a film. Queen Victoria, Tudors, Henry VIII, Robin Hood, Magna Carta, Civil War. There's always going to be something. Okay? Even if you don't know the whole from Anglo-Saxons and Normans down to present day, you know the things that you are supposed to know. Our history tends to be in libraries, for academics. I mean, I think things are getting better. I mean, it's expensive to make period films, but we have to be able to bring out our history and present it so that even if you never pick up an academic book,
You'll know something.
you'll know something.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I like that. Speaking of writing and writing about where you're from, let's talk about Glocal speak. So can you share a word, a phrase, or a saying that is a meaningful part of your local experience, and why or how you come to value it as Glocal speak?
So when you first asked me this, I sort of thought about this, and I was like, oh my gosh, where do I start? So there's a saying, okay? It's not particularly perhaps from my part of the world, but it's a Nigerian saying. And when I first heard it, I thought, wow, it's actually so true. And it's now from clap, dance, they start. So it's from the act of clapping that a dance begins. And to me, the interpretation of that is from one small thing, one small innocuous thing that you can end up. I published my book in 2017. I'm here in Accra. 2017 was the clap. I'm here, invited. Yes. Talking to you.
Yeah.
A dance.
That's it. And I love how that brings together this theme that I have here with this festival is activism. It's doing something that then moves the dial, moves people, moves someone somewhere. And so with that in mind, let's just get right to the mindset hack. So how do you hack your mindset?
What is a mindset hack? Please, I'm a simple person. I'm a simple girl. What is a mindset hack?
So what do you do to flip the switch? So you might be going in a zone, you might veer off, but how do you hack it to your mindset to either give you zen or give you inspiration, reset?
Okay, if you talk to people who know me, I'm not really a very zen person.
Okay. I wouldn't know it. You look very zen.
I'm not a very zen person. So I'm working on developing zen.
Okay.
I'm working on developing zen. Okay, what do I like to do? Okay, I like to dance.
Okay.
Okay, I like to dance. I think that dancing is something that you have to do in the now. So if you are dancing and really concentrating on the dance that you are dancing, you cannot think of what is going to happen after you stop dancing.
So true. Yeah. Whether it is choreographed dancing or just freestyle, it's true.
Yes.
It takes over.
Yes, and so your mind has to be, what do I do next?
Like how what's the flow?
Yes, but you can't think of, what am I going to cook for supper and I'm dancing?
Right, because you won't be dancing. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the brain doesn't. If you dance, you have to be dancing. Okay. Now, I'm not the exercise type, but I'm told people who jog and all this kind of thing. But I feel that when I used to be a bit more whatever, like I used to try and do walks. But walking, you think.
Yeah.
I don't think that contributes to Zen.
Sure.
And I think, again, perhaps depends on kind of mind you have. But some people, and I was surprised to hear this, I don't know about you. A friend of mine and I were talking. She told me that her brain switches off. I said, really?
When she's...
No, just that she
Just
can.
generally. Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
My brain is always going. So I said, what do you mean? I don't know that. Doesn't just be sitting there not thinking of anything. I said, how can that be? You obviously not one of these people either.
No.
Yeah. But apparently, learn it today, Florence, there are people who can sit down and they're not thinking of anything. Is that not amazing?
That's... Okay, the only time I can say that happens to me is in meditation, when I lose
but you are
that's
consciously.
A purpose. Yes, exactly.
No, I'm just drinking my tea. She just...
Wow.
Yes. But she said to me, it explained to me so much
About her.
Yes, and I thought, wow, aren't you lucky? My brain doesn't switch off. It's always, unless I'm asleep. So it just... Yeah. So...
It's very interesting with human.
Yes. So something like dance, my mind has to concentrate on what I'm doing then.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah, I like that. No one's ever... People say dance, but the thought behind it, no one's ever shared, and I like that. So keep dancing, folks. Keep dancing. Okay, so I just want to touch a little bit on your philanthropic work, working with these organizations, and really how you've taken public service into this iteration of yourself. And so tell us a little bit more about art in healthcare and what that means with Art for Life.
So I was approached by the Commissioner for Health, Professor Ake that due to experiences he'd had, he wanted to incorporate art and the practice of art into the whole healthcare system, not only for patients, but also for healthcare workers and also for people who come to visit. Because being in hospital is a stressful thing.
Yeah.
So that was 2019. So we did, so the first thing we did in February 2020, we did a seminar called, not hesitant to speak, which, if you notice, I have a speech hesitancy. So and at that time, the director of the Alliance Française in Lagos, they have a space. They offered to host us because the director then also had a speech hesitancy as a child. So we had a one-day seminar on how art therapy could be used to help people who who stammer, and also what could be done. We invited a media person to talk about what could be done to help how stammerers are projected. Because people who stammer are usually projected as not very smart.
Right.
Yes. And the opposite actually is often
The truth.
the truth, because it's just that your brain is working faster than your mouth can work.
Exactly.
And we also showed a French film which had a person who stammered as a protagonist. So, but what was, and then we had a speech therapist also come and talk about how art is used in her practice. But what was, I was holding like 10 about 3, okay? But what was really touching to me were 2 outcomes. One of them, so I had put it on my EcoBank alumni platform because, it was like looking for people to come.
Sure.
And got there, I saw a lady who, okay, I mean, we are friendly, but not that she would come to an event I'm doing because she's my friend, you know what I mean? And she told me at lunchtime that, Aduke, you don't know what you've done. I said, oh, okay, because when I saw, hi. I said, no, that her child stammers. And her child was about 11 or 12 at the time, and that, she'd been looking for how to help him. I was like, wow, you see, some clap.
Right, exactly.
And then another lady who's a university professor, she said to me she'd come because one of her students stammered, and in the discipline she taught, there was a lot of presentations that would be required once the student is out working.
Right.
And that she'd taken the numbers of the speech therapist, introduced them, told the student and his mother, and they were delighted. So I thought, well, I was very happy about that. And then COVID came, and then so once the isolation centers were established in Lagos, because we had, I think, about 5, 6 of them, we would take musicians and do open air concerts in the isolation centers. Yes, I mean, and you can still, if you look on YouTube, you'll still see some
events
hanging about. Yes, and that was very meaningful, because the health workers would phone, when are we coming? Because it was a way for them to distress.
Right.
Okay?
Everyone in the ecosystem. Yeah.
Yes. And so, like in the concerts, the health workers would dance with us. And then while the isolation patients are obviously inside the isolation centers looking out from the windows.
Sure.
And then we also had decorated some of the wards with, in inspirational sayings and all that. So that's the kind of thing we did.
Nice. I love that. Wow. Well, I could talk to you for a long time, but I know we have festival activities to get to. So before we let you go, I always like to ask a little bit about who you are when you're not working, and when you're not writing, and when you're not, well, we know you dance. So
Okay.
So, and we're sure, we know you're a reader, but so the question typically is, are you a reader, a watcher, or a listener? And what are some of your favorite reads, watches, or listens? Or what else do you do in your leisure time?
I read and I write, really. Yes.
Sure. So what are some of your favorite reads? So thinking about this theme of activism, if you were to put together the essential Pan-African reading lists, either for poets or for children's authors, or, whatever inspires you from the Pan-African canon, what would you recommend as things that you've read that you believe that are essential?
Well, So Long a Letter, obviously. Mariam Abba. First.
Okay.
Yes. I'm an actor. Atu.
Yeah.
Butchie, Emecheta, Florence Nwapa.
These are people that I don't even know. This is beautiful. I love it. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. So early women writers
Yeah.
to show you that it can be done. Yes, because you follow the obvious and say Shoyinka, Achebe, Ntogu, but you are included in their audience, but they weren't writing for you.
Wonderful.
How many female characters?
Right. Strong ones.
Strong
even.
ones, yeah.
But literally, how many female characters? Not many at all. Yeah. Thank you for that. All right, Aduke. So before we sign off, do you have any last thoughts you'd like to share with our audience?
Yes. First of all, obviously, I'd like to thank you for having me on the show. I think we've had a great conversation. I've really enjoyed it.
Oh, yay.
I'd also like to thank Pajia for having me.
Okay.
I've
yes.
met a lot of interesting people. I've sat in on a lot of fascinating conversations, and it's so wonderful to see that Pan-Africanism actually at work here. And last and certainly not least, I'd like to thank the Embassy of Ireland in Nigeria for supporting my work and for arranging for me to be here. So many, many thanks, and it's been a pleasure.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much for that. All right, Glocal citizens, this has been another episode of the podcast. You can catch us Tuesdays with new episodes at glocalcitizenspod.com or wherever you get your podcast. Please like, share, subscribe, leave us a review, up to a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Thumbs up on YouTube. And come on, folks, get us those reviews. It helps others find great content on the internet. So until next time, bye for now.